Welcome back into Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Reminding you, head over to youtube.com. Check us out there. Put Locked On Sports Atlanta into your browser. Subscribe to our ever-growing channel. And, of course, give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Well, the question is, will he or will he not be here? So Deion Jones, obviously, look, has become sort of a polarizing figure for the Atlanta Falcons and fans because – for a guy who a few years ago looked like he was on the rise and was certainly sort of one of the model linebackers in the NFL with the new scheme and system that Dean Pease has brought in, it does seem like that there isn't that sort of fit. Deion Jones is a lighter guy that runs sideline to sidelines and can make some plays, but more importantly is he can be a guy who's a really good coverage linebacker. And that's what his specialty is. And that's one of the things that made him one of the up and coming stars in the NFL. But in a system like Dean Pease, where you only have the three-man front, oftentimes you're getting some of those offensive linemen that are coming up to challenge him. And you've seen he's just not big enough, physical enough to be able to take on some of those blockers. So it has become sort of, is he a scheme fit or not a scheme fit in this defensive system? And he's a guy that Arthur Blank came out and said will be a Falcon for life, gave him the big contract extension. Will he or will he not be here come, let's say, July 1st? I have a strong feeling that they're going to move on from him. They just signed this kid that played with the Bears, this Kwiatkowski that had been with the Bears and was drafted by Ryan Pace and this, that, and the other. He's an inside linebacker. They obviously drafted Troy Anderson, the rookie out of Montana State, second-round pick. So they've made some, I don't know what you want to call them, contingency plans on the idea of if they were to move on from Deion Jones. Both those guys, Anderson and Kwiatkowski, they both are inside linebackers and guys, Kwiatkowski is a guy who started, he has started a whole bunch of games. I think he's got like 35, 36 starts, which may not sound like a lot, but he has started enough, played in 77 games. He's a guy that you could plug in there if you're trying to talk about rebuilding and a little bit bigger, more physical guy. But it just does seem like that while I thought maybe the end of Grady's tenure was coming, I think now the end of Debo's tenure is coming here. And right, wrong, and different, what have you. You can think or feel whatever you think about Deion Jones. I just think that in this scheme and system where you look now, maybe he's just not the right guy. And as you're transforming your roster and making some changes, to everything, first off, the only way you're going to get Debo off the books at a reasonable amount is you have to trade him, because even if you cut him after June 1st, you still have like $18 million of dead money. You still have way too much dead money involved for next to no savings on the cap. And right now, the Falcons don't need cap savings. They've freed up enough with Grady's restructure that they can sign the rookies, keep some money in the hole for later in the season, and still go out and get a guy or two. So right now, as far as needing more money on the cap, they don't need any more money on the cap. This is a matter of whether or not Deion Jones is the right guy to be in the middle of this defense. And, you've seen them bring in a whole mess of these linebackers, right? Lorenzo Carter, Rashaan Evans. They still have Michael Walker, that's out there. I just think that we're going to see Deion Jones end up being moved. I've seen names like Washington, Philadelphia. I've seen the Raiders be a team that could be linked to him. Look, Deion Jones still has a lot of value in this league. There's still a need for guys who can run and cover and do some things. And he's a pretty good tackler, but he's not a guy who can take on some of these bigger guys that come toward him or some of the offensive linemen that come toward him in only a three-man front. So don't be surprised if by about July 1st, and nothing's going to happen before, it's only May 16th today. Nothing is going to happen before June 1st because you can't do anything with Deion's money until then. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation is you have to wait until after June. But I'm not going to be surprised if right after June 1st, not June 2nd, but not long after that, but before we're headed toward training camp, that Deion doesn't get moved. And, it'll be another one of those pieces that you look at and say, what was of the old Falcons, right? There are very few of those guys left from the Super Bowl team. Think about who's left from the Super Bowl team, right? Jake Matthews was here. Deion Jones was here. Grady was here. They've gotten rid of most everybody else. Matt and Julio and even Josh Harris, their long snapper. Most of those guys have moved on. So those remnants of what is left from both the Dan Quinn era and from the Super Bowl era are gone. And it would be another one of those quote unquote Falcons for life type of guys that Arthur Blank tagged a few years ago that gave a big money extension to, and things didn't work out and regimes change and players change and things like that. That's the nature of the business, in the NFL. Me personally, I don't think Deion probably fits this defense, and you'd like to just see him move on to a place where he could still succeed. I still think he's a good player and I still think he has value, but before you kind of play him another year in a system where he doesn't fit and his value diminishes. And I don't know what Deion Jones's value is on the open market. I mean, I will say this: you're not trading Deion Jones to get a lot back in return, right? I mean, that ship is probably kind of sailed on the value that you'll get back for Deion Jones. You take whatever you get. It's probably going to be a late round pick. It's more just a matter of moving on in the system, cleaning up the roster a little bit, and honestly getting another high salary guy off the books. I mean, if you're going to be in cap purgatory and you're trying to clear as much money off as you can all in 1 year to open things up moving forward, then you might as well move on from Deion Jones. If he's not going to be a great fit for the defense and he's not the guy that he once was and he's got a big money contract for it, you can find a bidder. And if that means, honestly, it's a 5th or 6th round pick, then so be it. Then that's the reality of the situation. Take your emotion out of it. Take the idea of what he is or is not and what he can still be for this defense out of it. I just think that I expect by July 1st, somewhere in that range, 4th of July, but certainly before training camp, we've seen the last of Deion Jones in a Falcons uniform. All right, we thank you so much for being a part of the show today. Head over to youtube.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Locked On Sports Atlanta. Find that link, subscribe to the page. We're growing all the time. Leave us some comments about what we're talking about, and I do read through all of them, so really appreciate all the feedback that we got last week on the shows. Follow me on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316, and we also ask you, too, as you make us your first listen, make A to Z with Mark Zinno your second listen. Return of Mark Zinno to the Atlanta Sports airwaves, and you can hear his opinions that you may not like, but you got to hear them. A to Z with Mark Zinno is part of Locked On Sports Atlanta as well, free and available wherever you download your favorite podcast. We will be back with you tomorrow on Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.